Hey, what's happening, y'all, man? Rivera is officially fully cancer-free. Let's go, man. That's what's up, bro. That's really what's up, man. Let's go. Shouts out to Ron Rivera. Shouts out to the 2020 Washington football team, roster, coaching staff, training staff, front office, everybody, man. 2020 was a magical season, and I just want to break down how many obstacles we had to face. I mean, we went through extreme adversity that most teams didn't have to deal with in that season, let alone ever have to deal with in their franchise's history. And we had to deal with a lot of them at the same time. So to somehow win the NFC East, even though we had to beat a 4-10-1 Eagles team that didn't even want to win, still at the end of the day, to go 7-9 after going 3-13 the previous season, it's just wild, especially with everything I'm going to talk about in this video, what we had to go through, what they had to go through. So without further ado, let's get it. I mean, going from 3-13 to 7-9 and winning the NFC East division alone is just like, hey man, they did their thing that season. That's a big step forward. May not have been just this ridiculous team that was Super Bowl contenders, but we're definitely well on our way. And 2020 was a necessary step towards being one of those Super Bowl contenders. From 3-13 to 7-9 is just a big improvement to anybody's standards. But with what we had to deal with, what they had to deal with, we did more than just go 7-9. Don't let just 7-9 be the front cover of the 2020 season book. 7-9 is nice and all, but the little things done throughout the season, the many obstacles that they hurdled over, many of the things they had to just push to the side and keep working, I mean, it's ridiculous. Starting with the fact that we didn't have an off season. Let's start there. Because that in itself just wasn't fair. We were the newest team going into 2020 as far as coaching staff, roster, front office. I mean, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, almost every assistant coach, like tight ends, offensive line, all of that type of stuff. Almost all of them, including QB's coach, Ken Peace, who I really felt like was a very underrated hire that people don't talk about enough. And it's going to matter a lot if we end up drafting a quarterback in this upcoming draft, but that's for later. But again, we were the freshest team going into 2020. So with the COVID restrictions, not only that extra month that you're supposed to get of off-season practices, just from having a new head coach, just off of just having somebody different as the face of your franchise, just the head coach alone, you're supposed to get an extra month of practice. We had a new head coach, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and plenty of positional coaches, front office, everything. And not only did we not get that extra month, but we didn't get mini camps, rookie mini camps, nothing. And then we finally got training camp, and it was super reduced. They had to ramp it up every few days to actually get to the point that we're actually really practicing and hitting. So training camp was non-existent. And then don't even talk about the fact that we didn't have preseason at all. So Dwayne Haskins needed it, clearly. Our free agent pickups like J.D. McKissick, Logan Thomas, Cornelius Lucas, all of these guys needed it. Not only did they need the preseason to get better, but they also needed the reps to prove that they were better than people higher than them on the depth chart. Most importantly, like a Cornelius Lucas over a Jerron Christian. Jerron Christian got the initial starts at the beginning of the season and until he got hurt, mostly because we didn't have enough of an offseason to even realize that Cornelius Lucas would be better than him. I remember hearing that Cornelius Lucas looked pretty good in practice at times, but it wasn't enough reps for him to really showcase what he could do, so they just went with the guy that they had a little bit more faith in, a little bit more continuity with. Jerron Christian was already on this team for a couple of years. That's how he ended up starting. So, I mean, just little things like that the preseason would have helped out with. And in a big way, Dwayne Haskins getting more reps, Kyle Allen getting more reps, and just everybody in general. This team basically almost did a complete 180 as far as draft picks and free agents that we brought in. I mean, a lot of new faces had big roles on this team. And it would have been nice for even just like Scott Turner to have more reps, practices, and some preseason games to learn how to use everybody. Same thing with Jack Del Rio. It took Jack Del Rio, even as good of a defensive coordinator he is, a few games. It was only till like somewhat mid-season, beginning of the middle of the season, that he actually knew a lot of the players' weaknesses and strengths very well and knew how to coordinate and strategize games based on that. So all in all, our team needed a regular, just a normal offseason more than any other team in the NFL. Point blank period. It's not even close. Everybody else is a distant second and beyond. I mean, Ron Rivera couldn't even meet his new team. I mean, the entire roster couldn't even have face-to-face meetings with them until July. That's ridiculous. And then we had the usual burgundy and gold all-field controversies. I mean, all of them. Name change. I mean, that was ridiculous. It was hard for a lot of y'all to just accept the fact that we were even changing the name. So, like, the fan base was basically torn into two. And Dan Snyder being stubborn and not changing the name in the first place was just toxic. And then there were so many allegations amongst the organization with sexual harassment and misconduct, and front office guys and radio guys got fired over that. It was crazy, and we're still not sure. I mean, throughout the entire season, Dan Snyder has been accused of doing more things that haven't been set in stone, and it just hasn't been enough proof to really prove he did any, if not all of it. But we know for a fact, for those guys that got fired or quit early after the allegations started coming out, we know that a lot of them did a lot of that terrible stuff. So that was a huge distraction. I mean, Larry Michael was like literally the voice of the burgundy and gold for so many years. And the fact that he was wrapped up in that and now we had to get used to hearing new voices was just something in itself. But the most important part was the fact that all of them were part of these biases and sexual harassment and misconduct. And I mean, I was hearing racist quotes and things like that. So that was a huge distraction in the front office. Had to weed them out. Then at the same time, Dan Snyder is dealing with legal battles with his partners. Remember, Dan Snyder owns most of the company, but other people have good portions of the burgundy and gold franchise. Like, Dan Snyder is not the sole owner of the burgundy and gold, and everybody else other than Dan Snyder wanted out. So now he's had legal battles with them. And is it possible that Dan Snyder may be getting kicked out and voted out as being the owner and think that? I mean, that was a huge distraction. We were thinking maybe Jeff Bezos would end up being the new owner. I mean, it was wild. Then you also had the where are we gonna play chaos going on. Like, are we going to end up with a new stadium in Maryland, DC, Virginia? There were debates all over the fan base for that. And Dan Snyder was having to go into meetings and try to lobby for legalized gambling to help his stadium production and all of that type of stuff. And like, even how we used to do off-season things in the Bon Secours Washington Training Center in Richmond, Virginia, that was cut off. Now we do everything in Ashburn. So where we've been going to training camp to practice and where the fan engagement has always been at, that even changed this offseason. And we won't be going back to Richmond anymore. And you got to remember, I mean, technically, this offseason also included the firing of Bruce Allen, which, thank goodness. But that takes adjustments to delegate whose responsibilities are what, whose titles are what, and we replaced Bruce Allen technically with Jason Wright. That was a great thing, but it was still a change. So that took some adjusting too, and Jason Wright's doing a great job, first of all. But immediately as he's become the president of this team, I'm pretty sure 90% of what he has to deal with coming from fans is what the new team name will be and logo and all that type of stuff, what the rebranding will be. And that's a big distraction. It would be nice to just be able to talk about football. And then the big one that initiated this video, that was the big catalyst for this video, the cancer diagnosis for Rivera. I mean, that was huge. That caught all of us off guard. We were all taken aback, lost our breaths. I mean, it was like, wait, what? I mean, after all we've already been through, now Rivera got cancer. Now, I'm super happy that he made it through. All of us, our fan base, most importantly, his family, the organization, everybody, he's happy that he made it through. But don't forget what he went through. I mean, he was having to deal with chemo treatments like 7 weeks into the season. I mean, he had to miss meetings, he had to miss practices. He was getting IVs at halftime just so he can stand up for the second half of games. And then sometimes it was just too much and he would have to sit down on the sideline occasionally. I mean, that man was going through it. And all the while our team was losing games. So like, he was fighting cancer and then the team was just looking abysmal. I mean, after that week 1 win against the Eagles, that comeback where we looked terrible in the first half, it was just downhill from there for a while. All the while, most importantly, Ron Rivera is going through his cancer treatment, which is a huge obstacle to deal with. It motivated the players to do better, especially with COVID-19. I believe that is a strong reason why we ended up having the best COVID-19 numbers throughout the entire season out of the entire NFL. Go look it up. Out of the 480 COVID-19 cases that NFL teams had to deal with during the regular season, we were dead last in COVID-19 situations with 2. Seattle was second to last with 4, double what we had. And then you have the Ravens in first with 42, the Raiders with 37, Cleveland with 28, and basically, I mean, a lot of teams in the 20s, a lot of teams in the teens. And remember, we did the best by far with only 2. The NFL's average was 15. So despite all of this going on, with COVID-19 being extremely prevalent, our team was very disciplined. And the 2 cases we had weren't even like star players, which is huge. Matt Ioannidis was one of them, but he was already on injured reserve before that. So he wasn't even like a part of the team. He wasn't at practices anyway and stuff like that. At least he didn't have to be. So it was easy to just isolate him and keep it pushing. And again, I think Ron Rivera going through his cancer treatments and the team seeing that day to day, what he's going through and how much he's struggling and how much he's having to push through it, I really feel like that helped create a better disciplined team. I mean, I know Ron Rivera with his culture and militant teaching style, that also played a big part. But them seeing, I mean, players have even acknowledged that seeing what Ron Rivera's going through with cancer, there's no way they can't be responsible as far as COVID-19 protocols go and staying safe and making sure they don't bring it to the team. And so the fact that as of January 28th, Rivera is completely cancer free is just remarkable. It was less than a year that he did that, basically like half of a year. And then we move on to the quarterback controversy. I mean, Lord of mercy. I mean, Dwayne Haskins with the 1-3 start, he got benched after probably his best game out of the 4 start, so it was a little weird, but just behind the scenes, he just wasn't putting in the work. He just didn't seem like he cared enough. He wasn't being mature. He just was not giving it his all. His play on the field also wasn't good, but what he was doing behind the scenes was even worse. And for your, supposedly franchise quarterback to be acting like that off the field, that can't help with a good locker room environment, a good culture and everything. So that was a struggle in itself. And then having to bench a starting quarterback after 4 weeks is just controversy, ridiculous controversy. It was everywhere. Everybody all over the NFL talking about it. Like, what happened? What's going on? And of course, in the organization, everybody's confused as to what direction we're going in. 1-3, starting supposed franchise quarterback bench. So then Kyle Allen comes in, highs and lows, but then he ends up getting hurt for the rest of the season. So then Alex Smith, who we didn't even expect to play, who made his remarkable comeback from his 2018 injury, nobody even thought he would even play another snap for the NFL, ended up becoming the starting quarterback for this team and ended up starting 6 games for this team and playing in 7 because he came in for the injured Kyle Allen against that. That Rams game was probably our ugliest game all season. In fact, I'm actually sure of it. That was the ugliest game. Our offensive line was getting mutilated. Alex Smith got hit so many times in the first game that we had seen him in since he suffered that gruesome injury that he could have almost lost his leg, possibly could have lost his life recovering from. In the first game he comes back, he's going against Aaron Donald in that crazy Rams defense, and that was just one of the worst games I've ever seen from this team. Easily the worst game we put out there on the field this past season. And it was crazy too because most people, not me really, started believing in Kyle Allen because at least he was familiar with the offense. Haskins wasn't familiar with Scott Turner's offense, and even as much of a veteran as Alex Smith was, he was recovering from an impossible injury. And he also didn't know the offense. He wasn't familiar with Scott Turner, so Kyle Allen was supposed to be the one to revive this season, but then he was throwing away games. Like the Giants game, that was literally on him. Dustin Hopkins is also missing kicks that would have led to victories. It was just crazy. But then here comes Alex Smith, first game coming back from his 2018 crazy injury, and our team goes out there and plays their worst game, especially offensive line wise, which is the worst situation for Alex Smith. And the camera kept panning to his wife and his family in the stands and how hurt she was watching it. She just couldn't take it. But then Alex Smith found a way to go 5-1 to end the season. And then here came Taylor Heineke with the heroics and gave us the best quarterback play we had seen all season. And in the middle of all of that, Haskins came back to start one game after Alex Smith started to get hurt again against the Steelers and the 49ers. And then that was probably the worst game Dwayne Haskins has ever had in his football career. I mean, even since probably middle school. So we had to deal with that. And remember, the Alex Smith injury came after 4 straight wins. So it was just like, oh, we're building momentum, and then here goes another setback. And then you have players like Steven Sims not being as good as we expected. I mean, off of what he did last season, what he showed us, you would just expect him to play better. Now, granted, he had his best moments easily with Taylor Heineke, so quarterback play definitely played a role into that, but it's mostly Steven Sims. I mean, muffin punts, dropping easy passes. I mean, bruh, just there were several guys out there that just disappointed as far as what their production and play on the field ended up being compared to what we expected. And Steven Sims was one of the big ones, man. So you had to fight that. And then like Haskins had the whole, and I almost forgot, Haskins had the stripper thing where he was there with his girlfriend in like some hotel with strippers, no mask anywhere in sight. So then he just put everybody's lives into jeopardy, mainly Ron Rivera's. I mean, this whole organization had to go through obstacle after obstacle just to even make it so we can put a team out there to go against the Panthers. And then he had the nerve to go play that bad against them, man. It was terrible. And then Alex Smith doing what he could to try to beat the Eagles. And then he was terrible. He was really hurt, which is most of the reason why he was so terrible. But we ended up getting that win, barely, somehow. And then Taylor Heineke started for us against the Bucks and showed a lot of magic, showed a lot of fight. This team showed a lot of fight. The defense didn't show up as much as they showed up in most of the games this season. Usually our defense was the one that was carrying us, but that game the defense didn't show up, and Taylor Heineke and the offense was actually the one that gave us a great chance to win that game. But we ended up not winning it, of course. But I mean, everything we went through to even be in the playoffs, to go against the now Super Bowl participant Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and the fact that we fought them wire to wire, possession to possession, with everything that we were dealing with. I mean, our defensive rookie of the year didn't have a great game at all. The defense as a whole didn't play anywhere near as well as they had played the past 7 weeks. And we still went toe-to-toe with the team that's currently in the Super Bowl. With Taylor Heineke, I mean, just out of nowhere. Not even that much practice. I mean, now he's familiar with the offense somewhat because of his stints in Carolina with Scott Turner and Norv Turner and all of that. But this wasn't just some guy that was prepared. He didn't have an off season of training camps to learn the new players, learn the adjusted offense that because Scott Turner's not running the exact same thing he ran in Carolina. So of course there's some differences that Taylor Heineke had to adjust to. The team had to adjust to him. He had to adjust to the team. I mean, it was just so much going on. The fact that we went toe-to-toe, fight for fight with the Buccaneers, again, who are currently in the Super Bowl, just shows that this team had a lot of fight, has a lot of underrated talent, and I feel like we're just going to be back playing even better, going even harder next season, especially if we figure out this quarterback situation. I mean, nobody had to deal with what we had to deal with. I mean, it seemed like every month and a half, new sexual misconduct allegations. I mean, remember, that's going on throughout the entire season, even leading up to the playoffs. I mean, there was never just we're a normal organization for a whole week, ever. Not at any point during this season. We had to go through more than what most teams had to go through, and to somehow end up winning the NFC East is just wild when you really think about it. But man, hey man, first of all, shouts out to Ron Rivera for winning NFC Coach of the Year. Big congratulations. Shouts out to Alex Smith for winning Comeback Player of the Year. Obviously, we already knew that. I mean, once he took one snap against the Rams, he deserved it. Then he went 5-1. Like, come on now. Shouts out to this team and this training staff, this coaching staff, this front office, everything being so progressive. The training staff holding it down with the COVID-19, the players being disciplined, the staff being disciplined, everybody being disciplined as far as that goes. Then the training staff, I mean, we had way less injuries this season than we've had in previous seasons. That was a big change. Shouts out to how progressive our hiring process has been. I'm gonna do a whole video on that. How many minorities we have involved in big time roles, not just like random coaching positions, not just players, but like big time front office positions that really matter. GM, president, I mean everywhere. Again, I'm gonna do like a separate video on that, just giving everybody their due diligence, everybody getting their separate credit. I don't want to just list off names and keep it pushing. I feel like that deserves a video in itself. But I mean, all of the while, all of this terrible stuff going on, we're also doing all of this great stuff in this organization, and our future is super bright. I feel like we get the quarterback situation right, we're running this NFC East for years to come. And we will be the first back-to-back NFC East winners in what, like 15 years? And again, I keep emphasizing it, I keep repeating myself, but like, they went through a lot this season. I mean, this season had more turmoil in it than most seasons I can remember ever that any organization has ever gone through. But yeah, man, like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you haven't for more videos like this. coming out with plenty of film sessions, coming out with plenty of mock drafts. The live streams will never stop coming. The videos will never stop coming. So stay tuned for all of that. And as always, man, I really appreciate the support. Shouts out to everybody that pulls up to every video and likes it, leaves comments. I'm going to get to y'all. I've just been very busy, so I will get to all of those. Big shouts out to everybody that donates to the channel, everybody that gives to the channel in any way. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now, man. We all did it, man. As a fan base, as an organization, players, front office, coaching staff, everybody. We've been through a lot this season, but we came out on top, and I'm expecting bigger things for us next season, man. Shouts out to all of y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.